I have a few observations I want to run by you and see if you agree.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do them one at a time. This way I'll answer.
Yeah, I'll do one at a time. I like the lightning round.
Okay, the O'Reilly lightning round. Oh, by the way,
right.
I'm in the no-spin zone now.
Based upon his appearance today and body language and inflection, tone of voice, I think Mueller despises Donald Trump. 100%. Okay. But he likes, apparently, Attorney General Barr.
Respects him. I don't know like would be the right word. Respects him.
All right, but he took no cheap shots and made no snide remarks, and in the end, basically said he didn't have a problem with anything Barr said or done.
Correct.
Okay. So he loathes Trump. He likes Barr or respects Barr. So that's almost incompatible because Barr basically looked at his report and debriefed Mueller, as you just pointed out, in person, and came to the conclusion that after 2 years, Mueller had no evidence that would rise to an indictment ever, not during a president's term or after he leaves office. Correct?
Correct. So far, you're on your game, Mr. O'Reilly. Keep going.
So it's 100%. So then why are we going through this exercise? That's the next question the American people, those with open minds. Why are we doing this? Why is a special counsel implying that maybe there was a crime? Because that's not what a prosecutor does or an investigator. Basically, they come to a conclusion. And if they don't have enough evidence, that in itself is a conclusion in our system of justice. If you don't have enough to charge, the person is completely not guilty.
That is the most important statement that you have now made, and that is this. The way American justice works, if you don't have the evidence, and remember, he said, and Barr said when he and Rosenstein and the Office of Legal Counsel made their decision, Justice Department policy about whether you can or cannot indict a sitting president was never factored into their decision.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Because Mueller is not barred from doing what Ken Starr did. That is saying in his report, we found this, and this to be felonious. He can absolutely say that and state that, backing it up with whatever they found. Now, let's advance the story a little bit.
Well, let me ask you one question, and then we'll go back. We'll go back to your lightning round. Do you also believe, as I do, if they had the evidence that Donald Trump had committed any crime? Now, the fact that you're saying, well, I can't exonerate somebody does not make you guilty, nor does it rise to the level of an indictment, which is very important. But do you doubt the team that Mueller put together, only Democratic donors, somebody with one of the most atrocious track records in terms of unethical behavior, Andrew Weissman, Jeannie Ray Clinton's former attorney at the Clinton Foundation, do you have any doubt they would have been clear that they thought the president committed a crime?
No, but let's take politics out of it. Let's advance the story into the legal realm. If Robert Mueller had evidence Donald Trump committed a crime and didn't state that evidence in his report, then Robert Mueller himself is guilty of obstruction of justice.
That's a good point.
Robert Mueller could be prosecuted himself if he has evidence there was a crime committed and did not state that evidence. Under his mandate, under the charge he was given, you could bring him in and charge him with a felony. That's how absurd this whole thing was today.
It even gets worse. And I'll tell you one of the things, and it's interesting, Nadler seems to now be in protective mode of Mueller because they can compel him to testify. You know, they could hold him in contempt. Now,
yeah, but Mueller's not going to say anything he didn't say today.
Well, but here's the problem. You also have guys like Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows. He would have to answer, when did you know there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia? He would have to answer.
Go back to his report.
Well, hang on, though.
Cite whatever he wanted to cite. It would be a total waste of time.
Okay, but the next question, I don't think he can go back to the report. how is it you had time for insignificant FARA violations and taxi medallions, loan applications, and taxes, and your main mandate was Russian interference, and you never looked at the dirty Russian dossier that Hillary Clinton paid for?
He could just wipe that out of the park. Our mandate was this, our mandate was that, and we were on this course.
No, the mandate gave him clearance to go in any direction he needed to go.
But he's going to say, our guidelines were this, we did this. It would be stupefying. Not to say that Nadler, it won't call him, but Mueller covered himself on that realm. Mueller will stay within his 8-minute statement. He will. And I don't even think that's important. What I think is important is that the American people understand the bigger picture that's going on here. Number one, the President of the United States is being denied due process under the law. That's pretty outrageous itself. All right? Number two, the obstruction that Nadler is talking about come in two, if you read the report, there are just two things that Mueller cited that could rise. The firing of James Comey and the order to the counselor McCann, the president's counselor, to get rid of X, Y, and Z or do something, this and that, which was never, of course, carried out. Because you and I know Donald Trump, and he vents. He vents, as most people do.
By the way, most innocent people, and in this case the president, saying loudly every day, I never did this.
That's right. And you can imagine his frustration on certain days, and he's going, we got to get rid of this one, or we got to do this. That's not obstruction of justice. There must be an act. Now, if you're going to pin a case, a felonious case, on the firing of James Comey, here's Mueller's big problem. Here's why he couldn't have that in his report. Because it's more than likely that William Barr is going to release an Inspector General's report that says Comey broke the law. That's coming.
Yes, it is.
So Mueller could not be on Comey's side and could not cite Comey as part of an obstructive situation because Comey, I firmly believe, is going to be indicted himself. And, you and I had talked about this. This is the time for the Trump administration to get that Inspector General's report out tomorrow.
I don't know why.
Than let the Nadlers of the world convict Donald Trump in the court of public opinion. So get it out. It's done. Release it.
All right, quick break. We'll come back more with Bill O'Reilly on the other. All right, as we continue, Bill O'Reilly is with us going over the news, Robert Mueller's press conference from earlier today. We both covered on Fox at the same time the whole Clinton impeachment saga. The day Bill Clinton did get impeached, now remember, when you go back to the old independent counsel statute and versus, people like Nadler didn't want the Starr report out. There were 11 specific crimes laid out in that report by Ken Starr, specific. And the day that Bill Clinton was impeached, and he also had to pay nearly $1 million to Paula Jones, and he lost his law license, he had suborned perjury. He had a 73% approval rating the next day, Bill. I say let the Democrats do this politically, and they will guarantee the reelection of Donald Trump.
Well, Nadler looked shaky today. Did you see him?
I did. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah, he was really shaky. And Mueller looked tense, real tense. Mueller was not confident there.
Nope.
All right. So they understand that if you're going to put the nation through 2 years of maybe coulda, shoulda, woulda, but we really don't have it, but it might have happened, number one, fair-minded people are going to say this is unfair. And I want to reiterate, what Mueller did today was unfair. Okay? And number two, the independents, which will decide the election in 2020, I think are going to shift over and say, we may not like Donald Trump as a person, but the machine up against him is corrupt. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to vote for a corrupt machine. And that's what Nancy Pelosi knows, that you put up Biden or anybody, any of these people, and if that machine is perceived to be a corrupt one, you're going to lose.
You know, it's very interesting, Bill, because there's something that's called overreach here. And the Democratic Party, I really believe that it's like Donald Trump lives in the brains of every Democrat on Capitol Hill, but also in the media mob, separate and apart, but also important to me. And they cannot at this point even help themselves from the compulsion that waits for them the moment their eyes open every day, which is, what am I going to hate this guy about today? I mean, it is that bad. We've gotten to a point with this rage psychosis. They cannot believe they didn't get what they wanted from Mueller, and they can't believe the guy became president.
But they're still hopeful. See, the hardcore cadre on the progressive left is still hopeful that something will emerge to destroy Donald Trump. So they want to keep this thing going, and of course they don't want to make a mistake. I mean, they don't want to admit it. So the New York Times, how many articles did they convict Donald Trump of the most heinous things you could convict him of? How many times have they done that? New York Times is going to turn around and go, well, we might have been wrong on that. Never. And you know what is really fascinating? To watch entities like CNN go down and down and down and still do it.
Bill,
it's like putting a baseball team on the field, and you have 9 guys, none of them can hit, and you keep them on the field every single day, and you never win.
All right, you have a few more minutes, or you got work to do? Because I want to hold you through the break.
No, I mean, this is fun. I like doing this.
All right, hang on. Bill O'Reilly's with us. Bill O'Reilly.
AM, number 2.
Answer. Because just go after the top guy. Leave me alone.
I understand, man. That's why I'm kind of glad I'm out of it. Because
I know.
Every day of my life I had to deal with it. But what you're saying is that I understand the audience.
You understand.
That watches television.
Okay.
And I do.
So here's my question. How do these so-called news networks get away with what turns out to be outright lying for 2 years, nothing but a web of conspiracy theories that they peddled, mostly with anonymous sources, hype and hyperventilation any moment they think they've got this president on the ropes?
Because the management condones it, and at one point thought it was going to make money off of it. So MSNBC was nothing for 17 years.
All right, so all of these networks that say that they are news, and they peddle conspiracy theories, lies for 2+ years. And then I'm going to get to a second part of the question after, but how do they ever recover, or do they never recover?
They don't recover. It's like Time Magazine, Newsweek Magazine, now Sports Illustrated just got sold. Once the consumer believes that he or she is not getting a fair presentation, then most will leave and not buy or watch or whatever it may be. The zealots will stay. So if you're a far-left media concern, the far-left will watch you. So Rachel Maddow is the best example of this. On a hot day where the left thinks they've got a noose around President Trump's neck, her ratings go up. But on an ordinary day when that doesn't exist, she doesn't do very well. So it's all her whole constituency is based on, can we get rid of Donald Trump? That's not the recipe for success long term. And the reason at Fox News Channel, they can say whatever they want about Fox News Channel, but I was number 1 for 16 consecutive years, is because I was perceived to be.
By the way, I'm only number 1 for 3 years, and there's no. I mean, but let me tell you something. I have no plans to stay that long to break your record. I'm just telling everybody now.
Yeah, well, I hope you do. I really do. I mean, but look,
I'm going to play golf. Go ahead.
You base your analysis on facts.
Yes.
And that is the difference. Not hatred, not emotion, not I want a socialist government. You basically see the world the way you see it. Everybody knows what that is. But then when you present things, it's fact-based. That's the key to success.
Bill, 99% of the news media in this country went in one direction. You know, there have been times in my career and your career as well, both of us, we we come at something from an entirely different angle. When I vetted Obama, the last 2 years we've been unpeeling this onion, and with the declassification last week, it's not a matter of if anymore. America's going to see the FISA applications. America's going to see the 302s, the Gang of Eight, the exculpatory evidence. It's all coming. But here's my big problem, and I want you to really dig into this. Now, if these people on the left, in the media, Democrats, if they cared about, let's say, obstruction of justice, how did they all ignore Hillary's behavior, an underlying crime, the Espionage Act, and then when she deletes 33,000 subpoenaed emails, bleach bit hammers, and SIM cards removed? If they care about Russian interference, how do you ignore the dirty dossier? Even the New York Times is suggesting that Christopher Steele, who put this together, paid by Hillary, that it was Russian disinformation, but then it's used in a FISA warrant application to spy on the opposition party candidate to influence an election, and also spreading it out to media members so it would impact the 2016 election. How do you ignore, how do you say I'm a believer when you talk about Justice Kavanaugh in high school, but there's no I believers when it comes to the lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, who has credible allegations of rape and violent sexual assault? You don't hear a peep out of them. Where is some desire in here to get to the truth rather than just being a total hack for a Democratic Party socialist agenda?
Zealots do not seek the truth. If you are a political zealot, and you could be one on the right as well as the left, you are not interested in what really happens or what's fair or what's good for the entire country. The only thing you are interested in is imposing your view of the world on everybody else. So that's the answer to your question. You're not a rational person. You're not sitting down and examining evidence. No. You want socialism. So anyone who doesn't, you're going to try to destroy them. You don't care how, because the end justifies the means. And that, unfortunately, has taken root in about 20-25% of the American population.
That's pretty scary. At the end of the day, the reason, for example, what do I do for a living? If somebody asks me, I'll say I'm a talk show host. Well, you're not a journalist. No, I'm a talk show host. You're not well, maybe you're an opinion journalist. I said, yeah, that's part of being a talk show host. Bill, I can produce, as you can, hundreds of hours of straight reporting, whatever it maybe a war, God forbid, or maybe a natural disaster, and there's no opinion. We've done investigative work the last 2 years on the deep state or vetting Obama, 2 examples. We give opinion, but we're honest about the opinions and why I am a conservative, because conservatism works, i.e. the economy under Trump after tax cuts and ending burdensome regulation. We also talk sports and culture and everything in between. In other words, I view what I do as the entire newspaper. They're supposed to be objective. They're not. Can you think of anybody on cable today that you would say, meaning a host in prime time, that is objective?
I think Britt Hume is pretty fair.
Well, but I agree.
He doesn't have his own show anymore, and I think a guy like that is who you want to put up. He's a thinker, leans a little bit conservative, but doesn't let that influence his reportage. But there are very few of them because they take orders, Hannity. I mean, guys like me and you, we're lucky in the sense that we started this business and we didn't get interference. I mean, I never got interference on the O'Reilly Factor. I don't think you got interference on Hannity and Colmes when you started, did you?
No, none at all.
Okay, so we didn't have corporate masters telling us what to do. Again, I'll go back. If you're a reporter for the New York Times and you are seen on the street in your off hours wearing a mega hat, you're through. Done.
By the way, the MAGA hat is now the new trigger of the left in America. It's hilarious.
I know, but there wasn't that culture when we started the Fox News channel.
But you worked for, I knew Peter Jennings.
I worked for Jennings,
right,
and I worked for Rather.
Okay, and I knew Tom Brokaw.
In both organizations, CBS much more than ABC. But and once in a while they crossed the line with me, and they got pushback. I didn't brook it, but most of the reporters did. Most of the reporters working over there, if they got told by management, this is how you skew the story, they did it. And now all of them do it on cable, and that's what you're seeing.
It's fascinating, though, because I got to know Jennings and Brokaw and Tim Russert. Tim Russert, he moderated a debate between me and James Carville. But more importantly, I would interview him. I just happen to love his 2 books that he wrote.
He's a fair man. I mean, Russert was a fair guy.
But Bill, Peter Jennings came in my radio studio highlighting every page of the book that I had recently written. Tim Russert would seek my opinion as a conservative to understand it. Tom Brokaw, he was great until now he's in a mode where he has to protect MSNBC for some reason. But I don't think he was a rigid radical ideologue, although I think they all slanted left.
Well, for Brokaw, it was the social thing, I have to say, because I know them all. Rather was a committed liberal.
Right.
Okay? Sam Donaldson, same thing.
Right.
Brokaw was a social liberal. Loved the parties, loved the salons. Jennings didn't like any of that. Jennings, he went out and he schmoozed around, but he was real suspect of all of that. And so he was the least ideological of all of them.
Yeah, it's just we're never going. I don't think there's a path back.
No, there isn't. Because corporate America controls it now. It's a big moneymaker now. It's not a news calling. It's not like, okay, we're here for the people. We want to give the people the truth. That's not what's happening. It's like we want to make as much money as we can make, and along the way, I want to have friends that will invite me to all the parties in the Hamptons, Manhattan, and Hollywood, so I'm going to be liberal.
But what they're going to do, Bill, just from just like looking at it from a business model perspective, is they're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
It's already dead.
It's already dead. And
it's already dead.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, in many ways, I think we'll look at the golden age of cable and even broadcast news. But I will tell you the biggest shock for all of them is the day that Donald Trump leaves office, which is going to be 6 years. No, it's over. Nobody will watch them.
If Joe Biden ever gets elected president, cable ratings are going to fall 50%.
I won't be on the air, so it won't matter. I don't care.
I mean, you're never going to see him. Has anybody seen him since May 17th? He made his announcement for president.
No, he's gone 10 days in a row. He must have been tired from that one appearance in Philly.
Look, he doesn't have to campaign. I said that from the jump. You're not going to see him in a diner. Yeah. He's going to do name recognition, and I'm Obama. I'm the return of Obama. Vote for me. That's all he's going to do.
Not going to work, Bill. Not in this day and age. No way. Listen, I know we took a lot of extra time. We really appreciate it. It was a good conversation.
I really appreciate you having me on. Just a quick plug. Everybody can go to BillO'Reilly.com to see the Mueller analysis tonight. We're opening it up to everybody.
All right. Bill O'Reilly, BillO'Reilly.com.